Left side, Swanson to first. The Braves are world champions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Sports Speak. It is episode 76, back from a little Halloween break where I actually got to see our co-host Tim Moore in person for a fun weekend event. But Tim's not here yet. Hopefully he'll show up at some point, but it's Eddie Kalegi here, and we're joined by Zoe Alter. Lot to get to, of course. October wrapping up. We've talked about it. That's like the biggest month really in sports across the board. But the World Series wrapped up, the NFL season actually hitting its halfway mark after this week. Crazy to see how fast it's been going. But I say we jump right into it and talk a little about the World Series. Now, Zoe was so enraged that the Atlanta Braves even made the World Series that she couldn't bear to watch any of the games. But you do know the Braves won the World Series 2 out of 3 years that the NL East now has won the title, and Houston falls short. I even though I'm a Mets fan, and I know you differ on this, I still couldn't root for Altuve or Correa or any of them just after that. I've got no problem with Dusty Baker, but like some of the players, and the Braves had some guys that it's nice to see them, especially Freddie Freeman. I don't have any hate for Freddie Freeman. It's nice to see him win a World Series, and that team dealt with a lot of adversity this season, but definitely came out of nowhere. So what are some of your takes on how the World Series ended up shaping up?
Okay, I watched like a little bit. I didn't watch that much. And thinking about it, I was angry in general. The Braves made the World Series, won the World Series. But thinking about the guys individually, I was happy for a lot of them. Like I was happy for certain guys who had finally gotten there. And Atlanta fans, like since the whole debacle went down with Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, like I really do feel for them. I do. And so I was, I guess, in some ways happy for the people, but I was less happy just that the Braves as an organization won, just because I thought it was frustrating when you think back to, obviously the Mets blew everything. It's not a question. But when you think back to when the Braves were literally below 500, had just lost stars, like it was like certain things that were like, how did they do this? So I guess it makes it impressive. I like that it lasted for that long. You know, it wasn't just like a sweep or anything. I would have liked to see a little bit more of a push. Like some of the games, I would have wanted them to be a little bit closer. But other than that, like I did enjoy watching it. And I don't think I would have been happy with either team winning. That's like the problem, is that like, okay, I don't love that the Braves won. And at one point I was like, do I want to root for the Astros? But like, no, I really don't want to root for the Astros. So I was just in the middle and I was kind of indifferent. But I guess I'm glad that the good guys won, you know?
Yeah, as a fan of the Mets and of the good guys, I guess I was really torn just after the divisional series when it was down to the Astros, of course, with their history, the Red Sox with their manager's history in Alex Cora, the Braves being a rival, and the Dodgers, well, you know, being the Dodgers. And I know it's been 6 years, but I still have some animosity towards Chase Utley for the incident with Ruben Tejada, even though he has.
I wanted the Dodgers to win. That was what I wanted.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I like seeing the Dodgers lose. I don't know. I'm just, with their budget and the fact that they were able to bring so many players in, I don't know. It was just nice to see them get taken out by the Braves, even if it was the Atlanta Braves. But, you know, people always rip on the NL East that it's the worst division and that they're the NL least. But guess what? They've won 2 of the last 3 World Series. The Braves, despite having the worst record of the 6 division winners, they come through and they win the World Series. They stun the Brewers, they stun the Dodgers and Houston. So do you think it's kind of time to drop those stereotypes and start thinking that the NL East is a serious division?
The problem is that for as long as the Mets are going to be in that division, which is going to be forever, that people are going to call it that. There's no question. There's no one blows anything like the Mets. And in terms of the Braves have really shown up in the past. I don't know. We've seen even like over the last decade, they've gotten really good and they've been a contender every year. They're really scary. And the Mets have had certain flashes, but yes, I do think the stereotype should be dropped, but will it? There's no way. There's literally zero chance it will. It'll be like, oh, it's just the Braves division or it's just whatever. And there were certain times where if you think about it, like the Phillies had been good at times, like the Nationals have been good at times. And like it wasn't as split as it is now. But this year, I mean, going into it, it was like, oh, the Mets have the division, no problem. And then you see the Braves come out of nowhere and get it. The thing that impressed me most, to be honest, is the resilience of the Braves, right? Because you have so many guys get hurt. You pick up guys during free agency that end up literally being the backbones of your team all the way through. You lose your ace in the first game. Like there's just certain things. I think that was what was impressive. And I don't think the NL East should be hated for necessarily like the teams. I think they should be hated for, oh yeah, they blow games and like crazy stuff happens within the NL East. Like there's no doubting that. But I think in terms of what it's accomplished, I don't think you can hate on that.
Also, massive shout out, you mentioned it, Charlie Morton pitching with a broken leg and getting 2 strikeouts after breaking his leg. Everybody knows the Greg Jennings meme, but now you got to call it Charlie Morton. He really put the team on his back. But as for the Mets, I mean, now I'm trying to think. I think the Phillies, it's been longer since they last made the playoffs, but of course the Marlins have had a postseason appearance, as crazy as it was since more recently than the Mets, but always got to look forwards to 2022. I got to ask you, of course, Luis Rojas is out. Mets are trying to hire a general manager. And of course, in a typical Mets fashion, every single person that enters the race decides to drop out themselves and decide they don't want the job, which is just, I mean, you can't say anything else that doesn't fit the Mets more than that. But how do you feel about this team heading into 2022? We did see the Nationals, once they won the World Series, take a step back. Maybe the Braves do next year a bit. The Phillies are always mediocre. The Marlins are always bad. Is there a potential opening for the Mets in 2022?
How are the Braves going to take a step back when they won the World Series without Acuna? Like now they get him back. Like that's so scary for everyone. I don't think the Braves are taking a step back, but in terms of the Mets, I think this is pretty much my life in general with all the teams I follow. It's like, oh, how do they look next season? You know, right after the season ends. But I think for the Mets, I think it could be good. I think they have certain pieces. Getting back DeGrom is going to be a huge asset. Getting Syndergaard back into the rotation is going to be huge. Obviously, he was a big downfall. And honestly, you just have to turn to free agency too, because I think it comes down to depth, right? There were certain guys that had to be thrown into situations this year that were straight up from the minor leagues or had played their first game. And it was, some of them stepped up, like Brandon Drury stepped up and was fantastic. But there are certain things where you need depth, you need guys who have played in the league. And that's what I want to see from the Mets. In terms of the manager situation, like it's so beyond me at this point. Like it'll be someone and he'll be fired in the next 2 weeks, or he'll have a scandal and he'll be fired in the next 2 weeks. Like I'm not too worried about that. I would want to see them bring in someone who's well known, like a Joe Madden type of dude, but the Mets aren't going to attract that. There's no way it happens. There's too much scandal surrounding them. So they bring in someone, as long as the new person doesn't make the same decisions that Luis Rojas did at the end of important games, I really could care less who it is. Like the Mets might even be better without one. Like it can't get worse than Luis Rojas. So yeah, it's going to be better.
So let's shift gears to the NFL. And of course, when we have Zoe on SportsSpeak, we have to start with the Detroit Lions. Now, I've got to ask you, how do you almost beat Matthew Stafford and the Rams and then let my Eagles and Jalen Hurts beat you by 5 touchdowns when the Eagles are a mess and awful? Thank you. Thank you, NFL, for putting the Detroit Lions on the Eagles schedule so they could get back on track a little bit.
You can believe that your Eagles are going to be as good as you want them to be, but
I
they're not
going to say that they're bad. I'm saying even worse about the Lions, that you managed to lose to a bad team.
Honestly, I was happy when they lost. Like for them right now, they don't have any wins, right? And my dad and I talk about this all the time. We're like, okay, we're looking at the draft. Before the season even started, the second that Matthew Stafford was traded away, we were like, okay, when's the next draft? Like that was the immediate reaction. So for me, I don't mind the losing games. Like I watch the entire game. I love it. I root for them. I want a close game. I loved when they were doing things with the Rams. Like I love that onside kick when they scored and they came right back out and got the ball back again. Like I love that aggressiveness. I'm really learning to love Dan Campbell. And I don't mind the losses unless it's like hurting the team in general and just like their spirit, which I don't think it is.
Yes, Dan Campbell literally cried after the Vikings game.
He's literally so cute. Like he cares so much. And the Lions haven't had that a lot. I think that's something where Lions fans in Detroit in general cares a lot. That's just what they're known for. And you bring in a coach and the coach is like, meh. Like we all love Jim Caldwell, but he never smiled. He never frowned. He was just like the entire time. And you want someone with passion. Right. And you want someone with passion who has a good passion. You don't want a Matt Patricia. You want a Dan Campbell. And I love Dan Campbell. I like him there. But as you were saying, as for the Rams game, I think it happened just because one, the thing is, you would think that a lot of these players have played with Stafford, but they haven't. This is like a whole new Lions team. So you saw the couple guys that knew Stafford went up to him and hugged him and everything. But I think it was just, hey, we miss you, but we can still do this without you, if that makes sense. and they had something to prove. Whereas in the Eagles game, I think it was more a regular season game. Oh, let's lose and get a better draft pick. Obviously, that's not their mindset, but I think it was, they knew they were going to have to play at a higher level for the Rams, and I think they played down to your Eagles.
So the big question, the Lions have had a winless season before. Do you think they get in the win column eventually before the season's over?
To be honest, I would love if they didn't like secure the number 1 pick. They're already a mockery. It's not like it's going to get worse. But yeah, I do think there'll be 1 or 2 wins. I don't think it's going to be more than that. Crossing my fingers, it won't be more than that. But I think they will. They'll pick up 1 win against, they'll have some crazy win, which they always do. Maybe they'll beat, like, I think they play the Bears on Thanksgiving. Like, maybe they'll beat the Bears on Thanksgiving and just like certain things like that. They'll win 1 small game. They'll beat the Packers at some point. But I don't see them going on a streak of any kind. But I think eventually they're going to squeak out a win. And I think just under Dan Campbell, it's not possible to lose all your games and continue the way you are.
Thanksgiving, the one day the Detroit Lions fans always have to enjoy. I still don't understand how that tradition began, because it's one thing with the Cowboys, as much as I dislike them, they're America's team and on Thanksgiving and everything. How did the Detroit Lions manage to be the other team that's chosen every single year to get to host a game on Thanksgiving? How did that tradition even get rooted out?
Okay, so I actually kind of know. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty, like, I know a lot of it. Basically what happened was teams played once a week and some of them weren't getting viewership. Obviously the Lions have always sucked. And the Lions and the Cowboys had this idea where they were like, you know what? Throw in a special game for us. Like, just do it. And so no other team wanted to play on Thanksgiving because they wanted to be home with their families and certain things like that. And the Lions and Cowboys were like, let's do it. Like, throw us in there. And so they started getting the Thanksgiving game. And actually other teams have tried to take it from them. But because they kind of created this idea of playing on a holiday or playing off, like playing on a day that wasn't a Sunday, that they've gotten to keep it. So actually, a lot of teams are very jealous that they get to play on Thanksgiving, but because they came up with the idea and they get to humiliate themselves every year on Thanksgiving. So what could be better?
So let's talk about some teams in the AFC that are not doing particularly well. Now, we'll talk about Cleveland a little bit. I'll save more of that till the next time you're on, when we can get Tim to do his apology for his comments that Odell Beckham Jr. is a better receiver than Calvin Johnson. But let's talk about the Browns overall, though, because they did release OBJ. They've been banged up. Nick Chubb is hurt. Kareem Hunt, Baker Mayfield missed a game. They're at 4-4. They somehow lose to the walking corpse Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. So I'm getting concerned. First of all, I picked the Browns to win the Super Bowl over Tampa Bay, and I'm not feeling very good about that pick right now, because seriously, it's looking like there's a legitimate chance that Cleveland could finish 4th in the AFC North at this point. So do you see the Browns? I mean, still half the season to go. They have had a tough schedule through the beginning portion of the season, but they do still have to play Baltimore twice. There are some challenging games ahead. Do you think the Browns can potentially get back on track in the second half?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's not even a question. If you look at the Ravens, we think, oh, they're the Ravens. They're that scary. It's Lamar. But they really aren't as scary as they used to be. Like 2 seasons ago, if you looked at the Ravens, you would have been terrified to play them. But they're not as scary. And the Browns can beat them. I think it comes down to, they lost Kareem Hunt. And so it comes down to establishing your running game again and letting your QB do the thing. It's not like Odell was helping them at all. So it doesn't matter that Odell's gone. He was hurt last season and they were good. Like, there's certain things, Odell doesn't matter. They just need to get everyone involved. Their defense has got to step up a little bit. But in terms of playing the Ravens twice, I wouldn't be concerned. I think they're very, very beatable. You just have to shut down Lamar a little bit and you're fine. And the whole running situation with the Ravens is an absolute mess. The Steelers are just overrated, right? They come out with some crazy wins here and there, but it's not like they're a really, really good team, right? If the Browns have a good game, they're going to beat the Steelers. It's not a question. And as for the Bengals, I'm loving Jamar Chase. He's on my fantasy team, and he's like one of my new favorite players. I think the Bengals are your biggest other contender there. So if the Browns can really get their act together, which I think they can, if they just get things under control and calm down and not panic, that's what's going to debate. If they go into panic mode, they finish 4th. But if they chill out and they're like, okay, we got this, and they realize that they can win games, they're going to be fine. And I think that division is going to be between the Browns and the Bengals.
I don't understand Jamar Chase. In the preseason, we were all roasting him because he was saying that he didn't notice how big in NFL football was, and that it was going to be difficult for his hands to adjust. And now he's getting 200 receiving yards a game. So I will admit I was quite the doubter of him back at the beginning of the season. So a lot of my picks have not gone particularly well. Now, something I did say was that I thought the Chiefs were going to take a bit of a step back this year, but I did not think it was going to be to this extent. And I know you had them in a Super Bowl rematch with Tampa Bay, but the Chiefs are a mess right now. And yeah, they're 4-4. Yeah, they're 500. The record doesn't look awful, but 3 of those wins are over the Giants, the Eagles, and Washington. And the biggest margin of victory in those games is 13 points. In past years, the Chiefs would have absolutely dominated at least 2, if not all 3 of those teams. And their only other win was by 6 over the Cleveland Browns. There has not been a typical Kansas City rout so far this season. And in games where they would be expected, typically in the past, when they play other AFC powerhouse teams, you'd expect them to win most of those games. They've played 5 good teams in the AFC, and they're 1-4 against them. And the worst one, that Tennessee Titans game, where they simply didn't show up on offense and lost 28-3. Patrick Mahomes has just looked so out of sync, which frustrates me, because talking about fantasy teams, I have him as a quarterback on 2 of my teams and has hurt me more than 1 week. Travis Kelce suddenly can't hang on to the ball. The defense is just an embarrassment. I feel like this team, I was talking about this with Raheel, that they're so shell-shocked now after that Super Bowl game where they just got demolished by Tampa Bay. It still feels like they haven't recovered yet. And Patrick Mahomes is just trying to play hero ball too much and throw these deep passes. Some of these interceptions have just been embarrassing, where he's like falling backwards trying to throw the ball, and there's no way anybody's going to catch it, and he's trying to make the special play. We know Patrick Mahomes has those special assets that not many quarterbacks do, but he's got to learn to become more of a pocket passer and focus on the fundamentals instead of just trying to be a flashy player 24/7.
Well, you're mentioning Patrick Mahomes, and the thing is that, think about in previous years, right, when we've all watched him play, he does things that we don't see other quarterbacks do, and he makes risky plays. And the thing that I was always impressed with, that I think everyone finds most mesmerizing, is that his risky plays always seem to work, right? If any other QB had tried to make that throw that he made, or like a certain throw, it would have been an interception. And in my head, I see him coming back down to earth a little bit. That's how I see. I mean, every throw you make isn't going to be some crazy thing to Tyreek Hill, who then runs it into the end zone. Like, that's not how every play goes. And I think he's learning that more, and learning that, okay, you can make a special play every once in a while, but it can't be every play, because that's not how the NFL works. And more than that, other teams are catching on to it. But you talked about offense, but I think their defense is the main issue, because if they could get their defense together, I think their offense would help a lot. Because right now, the defense is 29th in the league. They're horrific. They're letting up so many points to teams who aren't even good, right? And then beyond that, that puts stress on the offense, because the offense knows that, hey, our defense isn't going to stop anything. So we have to score every time. We can't settle for field goals. If we don't even get 3, we're screwed. Like, certain things like that are what is plaguing the Chiefs most, in my opinion. Because in previous years, you've been allowed to rely on your defense. Your defense is going to go out there. You believe in them to make the stop. And it didn't matter that, the Chiefs did score every time, but it didn't even matter because your defense was doing its job. And for me, that's what it comes down to. I think it starts with the defense. You can't have defense that is one of the last ranked in the league and expect to win games. It's not the way it goes. And the Chiefs, I know, have always been offense heavy, but that offense doesn't get going unless that defense gets going.
All right, I think we're going to have a little bit of debate here, because I got to disagree with you. I think the Chiefs defense is a problem. I will say that. But I think the main issue is with the offense, because there's such high expectations with them. They scored 3 points against the Titans. They barely put up 20 against the New York Giants.
Because their defense wasn't doing its job, so they felt pressure. That pressure originates from the defense.
Yeah, but their offensive line not being able to protect Patrick Mahomes has nothing to do with their defense. The fact that their O-line can hold back low-level defenses, the defense is not holding up its weight. I'll agree with you on that. And the defense has been bad in some scenarios. But Patrick Mahomes, he's up to like 10 interceptions. He had like 6 combined over the last 2 years. I mean, it's absurd how far back he's dropped. We've seen so many bad turnovers, and it's not just Mahomes too. If you flash back to the Baltimore game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had that really embarrassing fumble when they were really trying to put the game away and allow the Ravens to come back and win. Like it's a collective issue on offense. So I think while the defense is a problem in past years, if they're giving up, 17 points to the Giants, maybe even 27 to the Titans, you'd expect the offense to hold up their side of the bargain as they have for the last 3 years and be able to outscore them and get the win. And we're just not seeing that because the offense is so out of sync. So while the defense is a problem, I think you really have to lay it back on the man that you gave $500 million to in Patrick Mahomes.
That's true too. And I agree. I think I'm not saying there aren't issues on offense because there are serious issues on offense too. But in my opinion, I think a lot of it, I think it's more of a psychological thing, if anything, right? Because even if you're talking about those offensive linemen, right? And they know, hey, if we don't score here, right? And our defense is going to go out anyway, but say an interception is thrown, they know that they're getting right back on the field after because their defense sucks and the other team's going to score. And so I think if anything, it's more tiring on your offensive line. It's more tiring on your entire personnel. And say what you want about the fumble, but without Clyde in there, I think it makes it a lot harder because he is a very versatile runner. And especially, in my opinion, I think it might have had something to do with, remember last year when Patrick Mahomes went down with a concussion when he got hurt? I think that is a big part of it too, because this Chiefs team knows that. I mean, if you put aside the fact that Patrick Mahomes is trying to overcompensate and that's what's sinking him, they know that if he gets hurt, the Chiefs pretty much have nothing, right? Because if your defense isn't performing, Patrick Mahomes is your whole team. And so I think part of it is I think it's very mental. I think it's, hey, we know we need to protect our quarterback, even though they're not doing it right. And if he gets hurt, we're sinking. And the Chiefs are used to, having 1 win, 2 wins at this point. I mean, 1 loss, 2 losses at this point in the season. I was like, what? And they're not used to being in this place where they're going to have to fight if they want to go to the playoffs, right? It's not going to just be handed to them. And I think that's the mentality. So yes, I think it is the offense, but I think more of it is the mentality that comes from knowing your defense sucks, if that makes sense.
It's just crazy. Well, 2 things. First of all, of course, you can't forget about Patrick Mahomes' concussion and the legend Chad Henne stepping into guiding into the Super Bowl and Tony Romo's concern on the air. And he was like, oh no, Jim, Patrick's hurt. But like the other thing too, the fact that the Chiefs are trailing to the Las Vegas Raiders, who have had everything happen with Henry Ruggs, have had their coach dismissed, have a team that's like in all kinds of tax issues as well in the city of Las Vegas. The fact that they're still behind them in the standings, and I have no faith in the Chiefs. They haven't played the Raiders yet. When they play them twice, I would not be shocked to see Las Vegas take them down both times. The Chiefs are just so different this year. But let's transition from a quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, who loves taking deep shots, to another quarterback who won't get his shot, and that's Aaron Rodgers. First of all, this is just hilarious, this whole thing. So he says in some press conference back in August that he's been immunized and doesn't specify, which here's my thing. It's one thing if he's not going to take the vaccine, because there's players that won't do that. And some of them will even deal with, if they understanding that there's the extra parameters that they'd have to miss a game potentially if they do test positive for COVID. That's one thing. He lied and he said that he did get the vaccine, and he's trying to say on Pat McAfee yesterday that it wasn't like that, but he sought some alternative treatment that he was trying to get approved by the NFL.
Herbal treatment. Yes, yeah. Aaron.
Like, it's one thing if you're anti-vax, but it's another thing if you're going to lie and instill some false confidence, because now the Packers are in a situation, despite having no Devontae Adams and stuff last week, Aaron Rodgers was the reason that they beat the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. Not having him, and I know Jordan Love, it's hard to really gauge, but regardless of his talent, it's his first NFL start, and regardless of how we were just completely roasting the Chiefs for the last 10 minutes, he's starting his career against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, who are looking for a win to get back on track this season. So I just think that Aaron Rodgers has made a mistake here and has put the Packers in a situation. And the earliest he can be cleared now is, I believe, Saturday the 13th. And if there's any sort of delay by a single day, Then he misses their next game, which would be against the Seahawks, when likely Russell Wilson will be coming off IR and Seattle will be hungry for a win because they're so far behind because of Russell Wilson's injury. So Aaron Rodgers, really, this is at the worst possible time this season for this to happen. But I mean, just be honest with people. I know Aaron Rodgers is not really known as someone who's particularly direct when it comes to talking to the media. And Exhibit A was this entire offseason when we had no idea if he was going to play for the Packers, leave, retire, and replace Alex Trebek on Jeopardy. But I mean, come on, Aaron. Like, and the whole thing on Pat McAfee, that rant yesterday, I mean, he's just hurting himself at this point.
The best part of that whole rant was Pat trying not to hysterically laugh. Did you see that part?
Yeah.
So he's like, he has his mic here, right? And he's hearing Aaron talk and hearing who he, consoled with and like got opinions from on the vaccine or whatever. And Pat's like, because Aaron's dead serious. Like, there is no hint of laughter, no smile. And Pat's like, and he's just like there, he's like sinking into himself. Like, he's trying so hard. He's like trying to like rub his beard or like his like whatever, like his scruff to try and show that he's not. He's like covering his mouth. It was the greatest thing. But I have been waiting literally forever for people to start hating Aaron Rodgers, right? Because as a Lions fan, he's like my worst enemy. He has crushed the Lions' souls and dreams so many times. I can't stand him. And he's the worst there is out of the Packers. Like, sure, he's put up good stats and he's had good games, but I've always been, Tom Brady's better than Aaron Rodgers, or anyone's better than Aaron Rodgers, because I've never liked Aaron Rodgers. And for me, this was fantastic. This was the greatest thing that's ever occurred, because it was like, well, obviously not the fact that he put people in danger. That wasn't cool. But the fact that people are now hating him, because that was amazing to me. But getting back to the situation, I think, first of all, I didn't realize he was a Trumper. He looks a little bit like one with what's going on there, but like he looks like he could be from like Texas, like, just like the way he appears, like he owns a farm. But I didn't expect that from him because, he's pretty literate and he talks, and on Jeopardy, he was pretty good. And I didn't see this coming. But my dad and I were talking about this morning, and we were saying, by this whole thing happening, like, so you and I, obviously, we want to go into like booth announcing and everything. And Aaron Rodgers, after his career, he had pretty much a straight shot to go into that, to be an analyst or to be in the booth somehow, be on a talk show. That is all gone. There is no way, because how can you have someone who's a loose cannon like this on air? Maybe he'll get on Fox, but that's about it. And so I think it was interesting because it's not like he's not aware that by saying these things, like certain people think that you should get the vaccine. Like, it's not like he wasn't aware that by saying he's an anti-vaxxer, people are going to look at him badly, because he did. He said he was immunized. He was like, oh, like, I don't have to follow anything. Like, I'm fine. But I'm just confused about the lying, right? Because he says one thing and 2 seconds later, he comes out with another thing. And I guess the thing that bothers me most about the whole situation is, have you heard like he's blamed it on the Packers a lot?
Yeah.
And obviously not Packer fan, don't like the Packers, but I think that sucks for him, because the Packers kind of did everything, they brought back Aaron Jones. They got everyone that Aaron Rodgers wanted there for him. And then he comes back, and the second that this happens, he's like, oh, it was the Packers' fault because they knew I wasn't really vaccinated. They knew I had done this herbal treatment. And I think that's the biggest mess, because if we thought any of the problems between the general managing of the Packers and Aaron Rodgers was solved, I think that all goes down the drain. And I want to see Jordan Love literally have the best game that a quarterback's ever had. Like, I'll worry about him down in the future, like for the Lions, but I want to see him crush the Chiefs. I want to see him be fantastic. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers, I'm hoping Aaron Rodgers doesn't really get his shot again, because I don't think he should. He lied. He put other people in danger. And that's not fair to anyone else.
I think it's interesting shifting to Jordan Love, because we've come to an era in the NFL where it's expected that rookie quarterbacks just get inserted right away, day one, or just a couple weeks in when they're not prepared. And we've seen the after effects with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, all struggling. Mac Jones has been the only one who's looked really comfortable so far this year. And it's not just this year, we've seen it in past years as well. But Jordan Love has now had a year and a half to sit on the sidelines and watch one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL do his job with a great lineup. And Devontae Adams is going to be back. He's going to have Aaron Jones. He's going to be gifted a lot of weapons for this first game, and going against a Chiefs defense that we were saying hasn't been particularly good this year. So I'm curious to see how this sort of theory will work out for the Packers, sitting Jordan Love for as long as they have, because really the last team to do something like this and sit a quarterback for more than a year, but still think he's a future franchise quarterback are the Packers when they had Aaron Rodgers sitting below Brett Favre. And of course, we saw what Aaron became. So I think this is really interesting. I think it's important actually for the Packers. This could end up paying off for them because let's be honest, regardless of what Aaron Rodgers' plans are next year, I am 99% sure he will not be playing for the Green Bay Packers. I still think he's going to be an NFL quarterback next year, but I do not think he's going to be playing for the Packers. This is Jordan Love's team starting in 2022. So getting him acquainted with the NFL style, getting him some snaps, and most importantly, getting him a start here to sort of get things going, even if Aaron Rodgers is right back for that Seattle game, I think is important to kind of add some confidence to him and just get used to the NFL style of play when you know that he's going to have such a huge role coming in the future. So I'm really excited to see how it's going to pan out. But I just want to say, I have never seen, really in any sport, a team that is so just dysfunctional. The star player is not bought in whatsoever, yet they're still one of the favorites to win the championship. And that's just really, that's an Aaron Rodgers type of team.
It's because the division's so bad. It's honestly, I think it comes down a lot to that. It's because the division's so bad, and it's because they have so many other weapons, right? I think that's all it comes down to. It's not whatever. And the best teams that we've seen are struggling. I think that's the only reason why. I think in a normal year, it definitely wouldn't be like that.
That's fair, but also, I mean, they went against the undefeated Arizona Cardinals, and I know AJ Green's controller turned off and he couldn't catch the pass, but still, I mean, that was the best team in the NFL. People were thinking at that point, and the Packers, without three of their top four receivers and with like 40-year-old Randall Cobb out there, were able to somehow beat them. So I don't know. I still have some faith in them, but I want to do one more thing on their NFL before we sign off. And I'll go first so you can start thinking. I want to go through my top 5 teams in the NFL right now, since we are halfway through the season after this week. So I'll give you a couple minutes. I'm going to go through mine. I say the best team still, and I know Zoe doesn't like them, but I still think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the best overall team in the NFL.
I picked them to win the World Series. I mean, not the World Series. I picked them to win Super Bowl this year, just so you know. So not that I like them, but I agree. Continue.
After we proved you wrong last year. But I mean, Tom Brady, through the first 6 weeks of the season, I know he had a down week against New Orleans, and that was a tough loss. But when they lose, he typically comes back and like comes out firing for the next 3 to 4 games. So I think he's going to be fine. He was on pace to have 6,000 yards this season through the first 6 weeks, and he's 44 years old. I don't care what people say; that is unheard of. So, and the Buccaneers defense is doing a great job. I know they somehow got burned by Trevor Siemian, who's a 4th string quarterback last year with New Orleans. I mean, but you know what? It's working out for the Buccaneers right now. I think they're still the number 1 team in the NFL. Number 2, I know the Cardinals lost, but I still think Arizona can get back on track and play well. Kyler Murray is having an MVP caliber year. If AJ Green doesn't have his like personal glitches, I think they'll be fine. DeAndre Hopkins has fit in really well. The one thing that costs them that I'm still concerned about is their defense. Losing JJ Watt for the rest of the season could be concerning for them, but I think the Cardinals are the 2nd best overall team in the NFL. Number 3, my top AFC team right now, I still like the Buffalo Bills. I know that loss to the Titans wasn't great, but let's remember they almost won that game. Josh Allen just got stuffed at the line by the Titans defense. I think Buffalo is the best all-around team. Their offense really is so electric, and their defense does a great job as well. Josh Allen having Stephon Diggs, having Cole Beasley, having a pair of running backs in Moss and Singletary. I think they're the most versatile team in the AFC. 4th best team in the NFL right now, I've got to say the LA Rams, even if they're the 2nd best in their division. And the move for Von Miller, don't underestimate that. That is a huge move. I know Miller is a few years into his career now. He's getting up there in age, but he's an all-pro linebacker, and pairing him with Aaron Donald on the defensive line, the offensive lines have been able to sort of shut down Donald a little bit because they've been double teaming him. Now, when you throw Miller in there on the field at the same time, you can't necessarily do that. So you're going to end up leaving one side of the line vulnerable, whether you double team Miller or you double team Donald. So the Rams defense could lead them, and Zoe's personal hero, Matthew Stafford, is doing a pretty good job now that he actually has a weapons and like a competent coaching staff. And then number 5, I have to say it, despite how much I don't like them, but the Dallas Cowboys are doing a great job. If they didn't lose by 2 points with Dak Prescott at quarterback in his first game back from a gruesome leg injury to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they'd be undefeated right now. I know their schedule hasn't been that difficult to begin with, and it'll get harder the second half of the season, but Trayvon Diggs has been amazing on defense. Zeke, Tony Pollard has really come into himself this year. And of course, the receiving core, you've got Cedric Wilson stepping up, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. My one problem with them, which I've said on this show before, is Mike McCarthy's coaching. He's made a lot of bad decisions already this season, and I have a feeling he could potentially haunt them in a playoff game. But it's undeniable that Dak Prescott is having a huge year, and I think the Cowboys are the number 5 team. So Zoe, who is your top 5?
I was worried that our top 5s are going to look very similar, and then I heard you say the Cowboys, and I'm feeling a lot better about myself. As far as the first team, I agree with you. I got to go Bucks just because Tom Brady's so dangerous. And I think a lot of these other teams are going through things. They're a little up and down. There's some questions. The Bucks are one of those teams that for me have the least questions. And that's why I put them at number 1, where they were definitely in my top 3. But to be number 1, just because if I had to pick any of these teams where, say I was betting on them, it would be the Bucks every time to win, just because they're the most reliable. So I think you have to put Bucks at 1. I have Cardinals at 2 because Kyler Murray's so good. And even though there was that loss to the Packers, I think that was just kind of like a one-time thing. And they have the personnel. It's just, for me, looking at the Cardinals offense is terrifying. And I think they're going to continue to do that. And they're also going to be fired up more, and they're going to keep winning games. The Rams are my number 3. Matt Stafford's been great. Everything going on there. As they just have to worry about injuries is my biggest worry there, because if one guy goes down, it could kind of sink the whole thing, because they have a lot of weapons here and there, but they all connect very well. I love the Von Miller move. Absolutely love it. I think it's going to be great. He's probably going to get hurt the first time he steps on the field, but even just having his presence there for one snap will be nice. And as much as I hate to say it, I got to pick the Packers at 4, just because even without Aaron Rodgers, first of all, think about the division. The division's horrific. It's just a complete mess. So there are games there where you're going to win 3/4, if not all of those games that you play divisionally. So that's going to put you ahead of everyone else. And even if you do have Jordan Love at quarterback, even say for the rest of the season, it probably won't be. Aaron Rodgers will come back at some point. But say you have Jordan Love at QB for the rest of the season, you have so many other weapons that you can use. I mean, you could put anyone at QB and just give the ball to Aaron Jones, and he'd do it all by himself. So for me, I think that still makes the Packers really scary. So they're my 4. And at 5, I would have to round it out with the Bills, just because so versatile, so scary. I mean, you talked about the offense a lot, but for me, it comes down to Josh Allen is getting everyone involved, right? And obviously you just lost Dawson Knox to injury, but he's going to be back in a week or so. And no matter who they're putting in there, Josh Allen is getting everyone involved. And for me, that's the biggest thing, because it shows that, hey, someone can go down and we're still going to be really good. We're still going to be really competitive. So those are my top 5: Bucks, Cards, Rams, Packers, and Bills. I think you're going to see them competing. And the Bengals, I want to put them in there, but I have to see a little bit more from them before I can throw them in the mix.
Well, it's going to be fun. I mean, we're somehow already halfway through this NFL season, but you're entering November. There's going to be a lot of there's a lot of fun matchups coming up over these next couple of weeks as well. So next time on Sports Speak, we'll get Tim Moore back. We got to get Zoe back on at some point so that Tim can do his official apology about his Odell Beckham Jr. comment back in the day. But we'll have Tim back on next week. We're going to recap the NASCAR finale, talk some NBA, MLB, get a guest on as well. So stay tuned for that. Also follow along on our Twitter at SportsSpeak Live for our weekly pick'em in the NFL. Tim's currently leading me. I had another bad week last week. I went 1-2 because the Buccaneers managed to lose to Trevor Siemian, but I digress, and we'll see what happens from there. But until next time, first off, Zoe Alter, thanks so much for joining us once again here on Sports Speak.
Thank you for having me. Maybe next time Tim will wake up in time to be on with us, but we'll see.
Yeah, he could have just been dodging you. He didn't want to make the apology yet. Maybe
True. I know, I'm pretty scary. I am.
He could be holding out hope that Odell gets signed by the Giants and turns his career around. You never know. All right, but until next time, we hope you enjoyed episode 76 of Sports Speak. This is Eddie Kalegi signing off. We hope you have a great rest of your weekend.